Hi, Serena. Let me unmute you here. So Stacy was here, but she she dropped out again. So hopefully she's going to get in a minute. Can you hear me okay? Serena? Oh, Lord. Phyllis? Cheryl? I can't, I'm not hearing you. I still can't hear you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I'm still not, I don't know. Do you want to try to leave and come back in? Oh, there you go. There you are. I hear you now.
There I go. For some reason, it wasn't, I guess it was on my headphones and it wasn't letting me hear you, but if I turn the headphones off.
Yeah, sometimes if they're Bluetooth, they can be weird like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but your sound is good.
My sound is good, okay.
I am gonna just admit everybody and hope that Stacy comes in a minute.
Okay.
So we will, and then I'll put my camera on in a minute. You can see my screen,
Okay.
right?
I can see the welcome to the book club screen.
Great. Okay.
Oh my God.
It's your mom. Do you want me to sign out?
No, I realized it said Uncle T because it was Tim using this last time to talk to his nephew. So I had to change my display.
Oh. Okay. You look nice.
Mom, other people can hear you.
I know.
Okay.
I'm muting myself now.
Okay.
Mhm.
Having Mr. 100. I can't Mr. 100.
Okay, I'm not gonna spend an hour doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, friends. So thank you so much for coming. Welcome. We appreciate your patience. As you know, there's always technical issues, so we're glad you joined us. I just asked if everyone could mute their mics right now, just so that we can all hear whoever is presenting. Thank you. My name is Michelle. If you don't know me, Michelle Steen. I work at the Crocker. I'm really glad that you've all joined us today. And as we know, this is a new way of interacting, so we really appreciate your grace and patience in this. This is part of our Thursday Nights In series. A lot of you know that typically when the museum is open, we have quite a bit of programming on Thursday nights. So we thought we wanted to bring something to you. And the purpose of this is also to have some constructive social time, exchange of ideas, and really a chance to connect. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Like I mentioned, we just ask that you mute your microphone until the point at which we will have interactive discussion. We'll let you know about that. And that involves that spoon that we mentioned. We also, if there are any technical issues or any questions, you can send a message in the chat function. If you're not familiar with Zoom, that will pop up at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to help you with that. That way you don't interrupt the program and we can all enjoy it. So like I said, that spoon earlier, there will be various opportunities for discussion throughout the program. We ask that you raise your spoon if you would like to participate when we ask you to, or you can also post a question in that chat box. So just like at the museum, we really want to create community here, an opportunity for that. We want you to be comfortable to participate as much or as little as you'd like. If you'd like to keep your camera off, that's okay as well. You can just listen. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this off to Stacy.
Hi, it's so good to see everyone. Can I see some smiles? I want to see some smiles and some spoons. Everybody got their spoons. So, good evening. I don't know if anyone remembers, I'm showing my age, that movie with Robin Williams, Good Morning, Vietnam. I always want to say, good evening, Sacramento. I'm excited to see you all. My name is Stacy Shelnut Hendrick, and I'm the Director of Education at the Crocker Art Museum. I want to thank Michelle for being our tech director tonight. As we were working on lighting, for some reason, my power went out, and then everything took forever to reboot. So thank you, Michelle, for being so graceful under pressure for that. Michelle is the manager of public programs, and she actually will be teaching the pet portrait class that's coming up, which I heard is sold out now, Michelle. So that's exciting because we're learning a new way of doing things online. It's hard to know who will do what. But today I am really thrilled to be able to offer you the Rogue Book Club. So back actually in about 2000, 2001, when I was first at the Crocker, I think I actually had the pleasure of starting the museum's very first book club. And throughout the years, 20 years, oh my gosh, since then, we've had sort of like starts and stops related to book clubs. But about 2018, a group of volunteers and members just decided to create their own book club. And that was exciting. And we always called it the Rogue Book Club because none of the staff were engaged in it. But we figured since we had this opportunity to do more reading, we would bring it under our fold and partner with them to present it to the larger Sacramento audience. I know many of you docents are avid readers, and other people who love art are also avid readers, and you guys have had a lot of book clubs yourselves. So this would be nice to do sort of a community-wide book club. So with that, I guess we are officially christening the book club as we move forward. My special guest today, I actually have two. One is going to be a little bit of my partner in crime, and that is Serena. Serena, can you unmute yourself just so I can make sure that you, yeah, everybody sees Serena. She has a beautiful quilt behind her. So she will be coordinating this book club for us. She has been doing it for the last 2 years with another group of volunteers and members, and now we're going to be working together. So it's nice. Serena, you might recognize because she volunteers for so many different programs at the museum. And then in addition to Serena, we have a special guest today, and our special guest is Lydia Kiesling. And Lydia is, I'm going to make sure I'm still on. Lydia, we featured in a program we have called Writer's Block. At the end of 2019, she had a wonderful new book called The Golden State out, and we talked to her then, and we're sort of looking at artists and trying to understand how they're creating during this time, sort of like pre-COVID, post-COVID. So we're happy to have Lydia here too. Lydia, can you say something? Okay, everybody see Lydia? All right, great. So this is our first time doing this, so I am going in and out of different things, and we're gonna have a couple of things that you'll see on the screen as well. So without further ado, I think we'll get started. The way that we've sort of segmented this evening is in 3 acts. I always like to say that, 3 acts. So we have 3 acts. The first act, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Rogue Book Club's picks. They, like I said, have been reading books over the last 2 years, and so they have an exhaustive list of books, and they're going to give us sort of their top 3 for now. Act 2, we're going to be talking to Lydia, as I said earlier, and then in Act 3, we're going to announce the book of the month for May. And so we have a book we'd like everybody to join us in reading, and then we'll discuss the book in June, on June 4th. And so that's how we're going to segment today's program. So with that, if you're ready, please wave your spoons. Okay. Now, I also want to check for sound quality because earlier my mic was going in and out. Is everyone hearing me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thumbs up on that. Perfect. Except for my New York accent and how fast I speak, right? I'll slow down. Okay, so for Act 1, we're going to go to Serena and talk a little bit about the 3 books that the Rogue Book Club has suggested that we take a look at. And what we're going to do is, after Serena sort of introduces the book a little bit, I'm going to ask the group if they've read it, if anybody wants to offer a comment or 2, and then we'll go on to our next book. So first up, Michelle, if you move our screens. Oh, perfect. Hundreds and Thousands by Emily Carr. So Serena.
Emily Carr is a British Columbian. She's from Victoria, British Columbia, and she was an artist around the turn of the 1900s. This is a journal of hers that she kept while she was out tramping around British Columbia, painting the countryside. And it was a favorite among the book club because it was a real intimate portrait of like what it's like to be painting and figuring out, she talked about figuring out brush strokes and how to live in the woods and discover the artistic side of figuring out like how to getting down to the nitty-gritty of painting, and being out in the wilderness and really delving into like how the different, what you were seeing, how to translate what you were seeing into a painting. And sometimes she would talk about some of the spiritual aspects of it, and what it meant to her to be a Canadian artist, what it meant for her to be a female artist. And it's just a wonderful example of someone who immerses herself in a situation and what she gets out of it and the beautiful art that comes from it. One of our members has decided to go on a road trip up to British Columbia to go to the Vancouver Museum of Art to see an exhibit of Emily Carr's, because she's been so inspired by her art.
Thanks, Serena. I appreciate that. I don't know if anyone else has read this book and wants to unmute and offer some comments. Sure, echoing there, but anybody want to share about this book? All right, let's go on to our next book then.
So this is, it's called Marbles, Mania, Depression, Michelangelo and Me. And it's by a graphic artist named Ellen Forney. In it, she's an established graphic artist, but the book talks about being diagnosed with bipolar depression or bipolar disorder, and going through therapy and going through talking with her friends and what it means to be a creative person. And it's done in the graphic novel style, so you get to both see what her art is and some of the struggles that she goes through it and what it means to be a creative person. And she includes sections about other creative people who've had mental illness and sort of what their reactions and do you have to have like a little bit of madness to be a creative person, or is that just sort of a stereotype? And I think some of the members really like the graphic novel aspect to it, because that's not something a lot of people have read, especially the graphic memoir sort of thing. And so the different type of book it was, but also just because with the graphic novel, you were really able to get inside her head, which is something sometimes you don't necessarily get. You get the visual representation of what was going on in her head. And yeah, a number of people really like that imagery aspect to the book.
I think often we don't give ourselves an opportunity to read graphic novels these days, so that's sort of fun. I don't know if the concept marbles is hitting a little close to home these days, though, because I know I've been going a little marbles lately, but I think that's a great pick. Thank the group for that. And I don't know, I'm looking at our group. I don't see anybody waving any spoons, so it looks like nobody's interested in talking about this one. But I remember actually also, if you want to Google NPR Marbles, because they also, I remember, talked about this book being a good summer pick. I think it was last summer or the summer before. I don't know, time seems to warp. It could have been 10 years ago now. My mind is like blurry. But I think if you want to hear more about this book, definitely check them out. And now our third book, let's see. Ooh, this is an oldie but goodie, huh?
Yeah, this was the first book I picked for the Rogue Book Club. For one thing, it was something I always wanted to read, and I had never gotten around to it. And there were a couple of members who mentioned the same thing, is oh yeah, I was wanting to read that, or I read it just, you know, when I was back in high school or college, and I'd really like to read it today. And just, again, there was a little bit of the, do you need to be mad to be creative? And so that was part of that, but also just the sort of decadent lifestyle, and, you know, the nature of good and bad. And how does art reflect what you see, and how can art express emotions and behaviors, and how you can use art to reflect the world is a lot of what came out of The Picture of Dorian Gray.
So, Serena, how does the book club select your books?
I've pretty much been selecting the books. I've gotten feedback from the group, like sometimes someone will be like, I want to read a memoir. And I'll say, okay, that sounds good. Or once it coordinated with the writer's block with Nancy Tingley's book.
Yes.
Um,
Some of you remember Nancy Tingley was the Asian art curator at the Carr Art Museum, and she's writing mystery novels now. And they take place in Asia.
And then once or twice I've tried to coordinate it to an exhibit that the Crocker was having.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Now, I think we weren't sure about time, so we didn't include one book. But since we have a little bit of time, I'm wondering if we might. Now, I'm looking at the group. Has anybody read any of the books that we've talked about so far? No. Oh, that's really good. I think, wait a minute, Phyllis, are you shaking your head no too? And you're a big reader. If you haven't read, oh my good. Phyllis, the Crocker Art Museum's librarian, is on this too. So that is great. All right. So those are 3 books. I don't know. Let's tell them the other book. Just tell them the title of the 4th book we had before we cut it out, Serena, just to give them a little peek at that. Because I thought that book was a really odd one. We don't have a slide of that, but that was an odd one.
It was called An Object of Beauty by Steve Martin. And it is that Steve Martin, but it's not a comic novel. It's a rather serious picturing of a woman who gets involved in the art gallery world, the art buying world, and the art collecting world. It's a contemporary novel, and sort of the highs and lows of collecting art and selling art. And it's told by a friend of hers, and he just watches her go from, you know, working in the back of Sotheby's to owning a gallery and taking off, and sort of how she changes as she works in this really competitive art world. And so it talks, and it's called An Object of Beauty, partly because it examines how when you start really selling art and doing it, collecting as a commodity, you can lose sense of art as a object of beauty, and it becomes an object of commerce. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Serena. We appreciate it. So now the book club is still going on, but we're just, like as I said, making it a bigger entity. And they have a Facebook page. Serena, how do people get to your Facebook page?
No, it's just Crocker Book Club.
Okay.
I try to put up books that I find interesting. There's a couple pictures of women reading with cats in their laps. That just hits close to home for me. And I've put up events for when the book club is meeting, but now y'all will be doing that. I've been able to paste that in for this book club, the official Rogue Book Club.
Yeah, you have to change it that. The official Rogue Book. I like that.
But yeah, so I have the Facebook page, and you just type in Crocker Book Club, and it'll come up.
Great. All right, are we ready for Act 2? Wave your spoon if you're ready. I'm gonna make sure that everybody's still out there. Thank you. So Act 2 features Lydia Kiesling, who wrote a wonderful book, The Golden State. And one of the reasons why we selected the book for the book club was because the Crocker Art Museum collects largely California art. And so we wanted a book that sort of celebrated California. And Lydia's book is one of those great road trip books. So since we've seen you or talked to you last, Lydia, what have you been up to?
Well, hi, first of all, to everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for those book recommendations, because I haven't read any of those, and they sound great. And also, hi, Mom. My mom is Phyllis, who is here. So what have I been up to? Well, it's been 8 weeks of sheltering in place here. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old who are home. One of them is trying to come in the room now. Go downstairs. Go downstairs. Okay, there's no peace. My husband is home also. He is very lucky that his job allows him to work from home. And Ernie, go downstairs. I'm sorry. You gotta go downstairs, baby. Go downstairs. Come on, go see Daddy.
Phyllis, do you want to take a guess at what grandchild that is?
My mom probably only tuned in so she could get a glimpse of them.
That's true.
So, we're very lucky. We have it as good as you can have it. We're all healthy and all have been able to be at home. And, my husband, who is the primary breadwinner in that he has a job that has a regular income and health insurance, which mine does not have. He still has his job. So, feeling very lucky, but also it's just not really very fun to be stuck at home with your 2 small children. And not be able to take them to playgrounds or have play dates or things like that. So we're a little bit afraid, but yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Now, you moved from the Bay Area, I would assume, because you probably got priced out of it like most of people in the Bay Area. But are you finding do you look at your new surroundings in the same way you thought about California?
We gotta go. I'm gonna put her down for a second. Sorry, I'll be right with you.
No worries.
Yeah, that's Grandma Pete. Hey, Tim.
Oh. That's sweet.
That's the guest group where I sleep in Portland.
So I know something. Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Dad has her now. He really had one job, but it's fine. Yes, we moved here. We've been here 8 months now, 8 or 9 months. We had been living in San Francisco for 7 years. It was our second go round. We had lived there for a couple of years, then moved away for a couple of years, and then moved back. And that's where our kids were born. But the cost of living there was just outrageous. We got evicted from one place because our landlady died, and it was just didn't seem like a place to be able to kind of have any stability, even if you're very lucky. So my husband got a job in Portland, and we moved here, and it's been great. And my mom can fly very quickly to Portland from Sacramento. And yes, she stays in this room. So yeah, it's been a really good change, but it is hard. I took the girls on a road trip, kind of reverse road version of this book, to California in the winter, just because I miss it and, miss family and friends there. And so, yeah.
So now your new book, I know you're going to give us a reading. What are you going to read from?
I'm just going to read a page from Golden State, which is so the cover, that's the hardback cover. This is the paperback cover.
And you're an award-winning author. I don't want to make you blush, but you were classified like one of the, very much a young and up-and-coming author to watch.
Well, I got very lucky. So the National Book Foundation, which puts out the National Book Awards every year, they have a category. It's kind of like a JV category called 5 Under 35, and every year they get 5 previous National Book Award winners or 5 Under 35 honorees to pick a new set of 5 Under 35 authors. And you get invited to the National Book Awards ceremony, but your ceremony is a few days before. So they keep them, it's very much like a separate thing. But I was really lucky that the novelist Samantha Hunts, and she writes short stories also, but her last novel was called Mr. Splitfoot, and it's a really wonderful book. She named me a 5 Under 35 person, and it was when I was 34 and a half. So I just slid in so now it's weird because by the time the paperback came out, now I'm 36, and so on the paperback it says 5 Under 35, and that's just not accurate anymore. But I can remember that I was once under 35.
As we all were.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the reading, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to read a short, very short. So the book takes place in northeastern California in a fictional town that looks very much like the real town of Alturas. And I guess I'm just going to read a page of driving up into this town for the first time. Okay. The drive is supposed to take, and I should say the protagonist is a woman named Daphne, and she has her 16-month-old Honey in the backseat, and they are driving together from the Bay Area to this town to stay in her deceased grandparents' house, which has been sitting empty. The drive is supposed to take 6.5 hours, but somehow we have been on the road for 8 when we come to the wooden sign sunk into grass that signifies the entrance to Deacon's Park. Although Honey is still caterwauling, passing the sign feels like entering protected land, something apart from the ravages of the town. It sounds like hair splitting to parse the varieties of mobile home, like something only a person obsessed with imperceptible class minutiae would do. But there are mobile homes, and despite how mortified I used to be by the fact that my grandparents lived in one, now I happen to think Deacon's Park is just as nice, if not nicer, than many a suburban cul-de-sac. It's a circle of nicely appointed and discreetly mobile homes of different styles and patterns, built on either side of a large circular street, each kept up nice and with a good-sized yard. The outer ring of houses is bounded by a split-rail fence, and beyond this the town gives over to the high desert, with low, prickly sagebrush and rafts of tumbleweed through which jackrabbits bound and antelope poke delicately in the cool mornings. Everyone has plenty of space, and a view of the low-lying mountains ringing the basin. It's a little neighborhood on the frontier, home on the range, if you will. I'm just going to stop there.
Oh, thank you. I know, yes, we can clap or raise our spoons. I know you also, can you tell us a little bit about your new book coming out?
Well, so I don't have a new book coming out. I'm working on it. I'm working on a new book. The way, it's a slow process. I would say I'm about a third of the way through a new novel. Pardon me?
That's pretty impressive, I think.
I mean, it's funny. You always kind of compare yourself to what your peers are doing. So lots of people whose book came out the same year mine did, they're like selling their new book. They're like announcing their new book deals and stuff. But, everyone has to work at their own pace. So I was, about a third of the way through, and finally felt like I was kind of knew what I was doing, but then this happened, and I just haven't been working on it at all since the pandemic began. But it's very different. It's about, I actually don't even know what it's about, so I guess it's probably less than a third of the way done. But the basic setting is the oil and gas industry, and especially the period in the 1990s when the Soviet Union was dissolved, and a lot of American and European multinational companies were trying to zoom in to former Soviet republics and get the concessions for their huge oil and natural gas reserves. So it was a very weird time. It was kind of like a gold rush situation, and a lot of strange people kind of competing with each other for these very valuable access to these valuable reserves. And so I'm interested in that kind of period of time and that industry, and then I'm trying to figure out how to put like a domestic, just like a family story in that, and how people get involved in like that kind of work in that industry, and how people sort of do these weird like imperial projects in different ways. So it's really, really different from what this novel was.
What made you go in that direction?
Well, so I am a foreign service brat, and our family, when I was growing up, moved around every 2 to 5 years to different places in the world. And so that's different than, it's not quite the same as being in like an oil family, because there are a lot, but there's a similar, you know, when I went to a high school where there were a lot of kind of international kids, and there were kids who were called Aramco kids because their parents were working in Saudi Arabia for the Saudi Aramco oil company. And they're sort of similar kind of situations. So we lived in, or my parents lived, I was in high school, but spent a couple of summers there in Armenia, Yerevan, Armenia in 1997. And so I was just trying to think about what that kind of upbringing is like, and thinking about just that particular like area of the world. And then I started reading about it because I didn't know anything at the time, you know, what was going on there. And I learned that the big thing that was happening at that time was one country over in Azerbaijan on the Caspian Sea has a bunch of oil and gas. And so that was sort of like a focal point of this worldwide scramble to grab onto oil and gas. So I don't know, it just kind of, I was like thinking about one thing, and then I started reading about it, and it led me in another direction, which is what often happens when you're trying to work on on a novel.
That's interesting. When you were talking about reserves, it made me think about just sort of how much I've been thinking about the notion of scarcity and how people, you know, are acting these days in relationship to supply and demand. And my son had asked me, you know, Mom, have you ever, and he's 16, he was like, have you ever been in a situation like this? And I was saying that the only thing that I can remember growing up that was close was when we had the oil crisis, and you could, you know, you had to get your oil either if you had like a even or odd tag. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it was in New York. I don't know if they did it in California, but you could only get gas on a certain day. And it was a sense of, you know, scarcity. But it's just interesting just how people act when they think, even if it's not true, when they think there's not enough of something. No,
it's very true. Well, and one of to research this book, I've been reading a lot of books about the oil and gas industry, which is never about just one country or one place. It's the whole world. It's a very, you know, interconnected network. And it's actually changed my views about some. I used to think like, oh, it's so awful. Like, why would anyone want to drill in like the Arctic National Reserve? And I still do not think that we should drill for oil in the Arctic National Reserve. But when you read about like what happens, the oil is coming from somewhere, and it's like, if, you know, American companies are going to other parts of the world and like bringing a lot of environmental degradation to other places, it's just kind of like outsourcing the problem. And so it's made me think more about quote unquote like energy independence, and how these things, they're always someone's problem, whether you can see it or not.
You're a thinker. Phyllis Ray's a thinker. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we really appreciate it. I know you have a busy household, so I'm
Right.
gonna let you get back to it. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone.
We say bye to you with our golden spoons. Bye. All right. That moves us into Act 3. And Act 3 is where we have the super announcement of the book of the month. Are you ready? So now the way we're going to do this is actually give you some clues. And this, you may have to take yourselves off of mute once I give you some clues. And there are 3 clues. One is the exhibition that the Crocker is having. So coming up this summer, I think some of you know that the Tiffany exhibition will not happen, but the exhibition that will happen is Scheherazade and her sisters, Real and Imagined Gilded Age Women from the Dijkstra collection. And that's happening in the summer. Hopefully it'll open up on time, which is June 20th, going to October 11th, but everything is fluid these days. But you see on your screen one image from that exhibition, and it takes its name from, 1001 Nights, Arabian Night Stories. And the concept of the exhibition largely is sort of, the muses of a variety of European artists. The other clue you have is we have the wrong slide. We have the wrong PowerPoint. So the other clue was there was an exhibition. Yeah, you can stay on this slide, Michelle. There was an exhibition in 2015 of Matisse's models. It was actually Norma Allison, who's a docent at the museum, gave me an article. It was an exhibition at the Wallach Gallery in New York. It's a University Gallery of Columbia University. And they had a dual show with the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. And it was an exhibition of African models who modeled for Matisse and Monet. So that's your second clue. And then the third clue is an exhibition that the Metropolitan Museum had a few years back it was called Madame Cezanne. And it was 24 portraits of Cezanne's wife. Her name's Hortense, I believe, Hortense. And it's 24 portraits over 20 years. And so Serena picked a book that was largely related to Scheherazade, but if you get a theme going with all the 3 things that I talked about, does anybody have maybe a thought of what the book might be that we're going to have as our book of the month? What do you hear when I tell you about those 3 different exhibitions? What's the commonality? Let's see if I see anybody. Oh, there's a spoon. Go for it.
Women who are associated with artists.
Nice. And who model in particular.
Model and or their muses. Yeah.
Definitely. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to do a drum roll. We actually have a couple of more slides. Michelle, you want to show some other slides from the show? You might recognize some of those. That's from our show. But the book we're going to read is Sargent's Women, 4 Lives Behind the Canvas, Donna Lucy. So we thought this book would be interesting because it gives voice to the women who are models within Sargent's sort of portrait repertoire, which is pretty large and pretty well known. Serena, do you want to talk a little bit about this selection?
Yeah, the portraits are painted of pretty much the upper class women that he painted, including Isabella Stewart Gardner, probably the most famous one, whose museum in Boston is just fantastic. And I picked it because it reflected the idea of women in that Gilded Age that was the point of the Scheherazade exhibit. That sort of glitzy kind of I mean, the exhibit includes all women from all walks of life, but this is the upper class women and the women who were well known, who had their, I mean, were well enough known to be painted by Sargent, that sort of thing.
And I don't know if anybody remembers, a few years back, we actually read Madam X and had the author come and do sort of a wonderful, actually, lunch and book conversation with us. And so I felt like this is a great sort of pick to sort of put that in a larger context. So we're excited to read this book. And then on June 4th, everyone is invited here along with the Greater Sacramento for a book discussion on that book. And we've put up here some local places that if you wanted to buy the book, they're doing curbside deliveries. As you all know, this is a challenging time for smaller businesses. And so Capital Books and Beers Books are both wonderful places to patronize. And then of course the Crocker Art Museum store. I know we have the Golden State. I'm not sure which of the other books we might have, but it's always a good place to check out since many of you spend so much time there anyway. So
if I can also mention, when the library reopens, they have multiple copies. And right now they have some copies, I'm not sure if they're audio or I think they're good. They're electronic books that are good for Kindle and all the other platforms. So you can also check out the library for their digital copies.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about the library is that, well, two things. One is, if you haven't done Hoopla from the library, if you don't have that app, definitely get that app, because almost any book on Hoopla you can get immediately, as opposed to the Libby app, which puts you in like a waiting cycle where you have to wait to get the book. So Hoopla is the best one. And since COVID-19, instead of only allowing you like 6 books a month, they're seemingly letting us go over that, because I know I've gotten more than 6 books. Haven't been able to read more than 6 books, but I've been like, oh, I can get it, I can get it, I can get it, I can get it. So do that. It's really nice. And they also have audiobooks on Hoopla as well. So I definitely would check that out. I know some of us like to have the book in our hands. Others like to are fine with digital versions. So that is a concept that you might want to check out. And then last but not least, I also wanted to mention a couple of different announcements. One is we're trying to raise our YouTube subscribers, because once we get to 1,000, then people can actually follow us or look at our YouTube content like on their mobile devices. And so if you could subscribe to YouTube, that would really be great. We're putting all these links in the chats. So if you just want to cut and paste, you can do that. So I'm asking everybody to encourage their friends, their children, their grandchildren to subscribe to YouTube, the Crocker's YouTube channel, and check it out. There's like virtual tours, like you saw the Redmond tour, that's on YouTube. There's other things that you might miss coming out via the email or the or social media that will be on YouTube. So that's a good thing to take a look at. And I'm trying to think, Michelle, is there anything else I need to say? Because I missed my updated notes, so I want to make sure that I haven't lost anything.
I think that's it, Stacy. Yeah.
So I think the best thing to do is for you to put us on your calendar on June 4th at 6 o'clock. That will be our next session to discuss our next book. We might even do a couple of podcasts if Serena's up for it, because there's some really good ones. There's one I was thinking when she was talking that might be fun for people to take a look at too. So, Serena, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just encourage people to check the Facebook. I have a more expanded list of the books we've read so far, and I can update it for the last couple ones we've read. And feel free on the Facebook to ask me any questions you have about other books I would recommend. I'm happy to answer any questions and to, I don't know, talk about art books. I'm thrilled to talk about them, so yeah.
I think we have a quick spoon in the air.
Great.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm a docent, and I'm wondering if maybe because the next book is going to be related to upcoming exhibition, if Sarah could put something in the e-news on a Friday about the book and how to get it and blah, blah.
Kathy, thank you. 'cause
Thank you.
yes, a few docents mentioned that they weren't going to be able to make it today and they wanted that. So Sarah is going to put it in tomorrow's e-news, but I will add where you can get it. That's good. We will do that.
Wonderful.
Thank you. That's great. Any other questions or thoughts about books? Nobody wants to talk about books. They're leaving all the hard work to us. As if COVID-19 wasn't hard enough, now we have to carry the load of the discussion too. It's so good to see some faces. It really is. I see some volunteers from Davis. Oh, so nice. Hi, how are you? Oh, all right. Well, I hope you're excited about reading the book. But again, you don't have to read the book club to join us for the discussion. We would just love to have you. And with that, I want everybody to wave their spoons goodbye. Next time we'll do forks. We'll go wild. Do forks. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Serena. Thank you, Lydia. Have a great evening.
The book, I'll put the book back up again one more time.
Perfect.
I know some people wanted to see it, so.
Yeah, and we'll leave that up, and you guys can go out. We'll stick around for a little while in case anyone has any questions or suggestions. That's the other thing. Education at Crocker Art Museum, if you want to participate in a survey or want a full list of books, we'd be happy to send that to you. Education at crockerartmuseum.org. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Mary, good to see you. So good to see you, Mary. Bye. How are you doing?
Okay, I turned my audio on. Hi, good to see you too.
How you doing? Have you heard from Sam? I haven't seen him.
Oh yeah, we email almost every night. In fact, I've got several messages. He keeps dinging me.
Oh, good.
He's doing well.
Good.
Surprisingly, because he hasn't been out. Well, he's out all the time walking his dogs, and binge watching TV till 3 a.m.
Oh, is anybody else doing
and
that?
then messaging us.
I think my whole schedule is like really off. Like I can't seem to go to bed earlier, and I can't seem to get up earlier. Like it's just like my clock is off.
Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to go to bed earlier and get up earlier, but nah.
Me too. Cindy, you're not dancing the waltz these days, huh?
No.
How do you do it? You got to do that in social distance.
I know. I miss dancing so much. I really do. I've started playing tennis, though. That's the closest thing I have to dancing, but so that's fun.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But it's so far it hasn't helped my sleep. But I'm having sleep problems too, like a lot.
Yeah.
Bummer.
I should show you guys. Oh, so this is a great challenge. Wait, I don't know if I can even find it. I want to show it to you so bad. So I'm on the board of the Girl Scouts, and they gave us a challenge to take a picture of a woman who we admire, and like to pose ourselves in that sort of in the same way that they did this picture. And so let's see if I can. Okay. I think I have it. Is it? Hold on. I'm gonna have to share my screen once I get it up. But the funny part has been all my board members have been, or my fellow board members have been doing it. This is me. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this is a young.
Oh, wow.
This is a young Maya Angelou, like when she was dancing.
Great.
I know.
Fantastic.
It was
looks great.
I felt like I nailed it. My son helped, but it took a good amount of time. So I'm suggesting anybody who has time to kill.
Yes.
It's a great challenge. And one young woman, we have a couple of young girls on the board with us. One did Madame Curie, which is a great one. Another fellow board member did, one woman did, from India. Mother Teresa. I mean, like, some of these are amazing. I wish I could show them to you, but you can tell that people really took it to heart. You're supposed to do somebody who inspires you, a woman who inspires you. So I might send that out because it's a great challenge.
Yeah, I
There's some
saw
wonderful
the
photos.
Getty Museum had a web. They were sending around, something was going around from the Getty Museum, and it was a challenge to have dress up like a famous painting, like Mona Lisa or Birth of Venus. Did you guys see that?
I did.
That was cool.
Did Sarah include that in the Docent E-News? We need to include that because somebody's neighbor did one that was really cute. Like one of the docents' neighbor did one. Yeah, it's really funny how people, the creativity
I
that
know.
we're experiencing has been really nice these days.
Stacy,
Uh-huh.
in case this Zoom just cuts out rapidly like some of them do, I'd just like to say before that, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I'm glad.
Wonderful.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
glad. I'm glad. It's so good to see everybody, and we'll work out, some of the kinks, but we were happy to, engage in this. It seems like something that it'd be nice to do in person, but if we have to do it virtually, we can continue to do it virtually.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, but it's good to see you all.
You too, Stacy.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. You too.
Good. Thanks,
Stay
Kat.
up too late.
Yes.
Email me at 4 a.m.
Like Sam.
Yeah.
She emails me at 4 a.m.
That's funny. I gotta email him. You're not talking to me. I'll find out what he's watching because I'm probably watching it too. All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
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 Michelle, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, that was a good experience, learning experience. So
I think one thing that I am experiencing on my computer is it's weird. Like, I don't know, for some reason, like my screen would just go and I'd be looking at my desktop background. And I was like so scared that you guys were gone. And like, so I kept having to keep poise in my face, but I was definitely scared that I was cutting out. It was weird. I don't know.
your computer.
Yeah, I think just my turning it around and joggling chords it didn't like it. Didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I know. I was.
Were you nervous?
before.
Oh, so sorry.
No, it was just really funny.
Yeah. I don't know if Mary, you may have to kick Mary out.
I am.
I'm leaving.
Oh, okay. I thought you were stuck. I thought you were stuck.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stop recording.